This is the Self-Taught or Not podcast with
Dylan Israel
and Eric Hanchett, where we teach you the do's and don'ts of software development from two software development professionals, one self-taught and one not.
All right. No cold open this time. Let's just jump right in.
All right.
So today we are going to be talking about some of the, I guess one of the number one reasons sometimes people decide they want to go into development, and that is sort of money. And so we're going to talk about all things money, negotiations, salary, sort of knowing where you're at, and what things are important, what things aren't.
Yeah, I think this is, like you said, Dylan, the number one thing people think of when they want to get into this field that we're all both in. I mean, depends on where you are in your life. Some people, since they were age of 6 years old, they started programming and they knew they were going to do this their whole life. But I think more and more often what you see is people kind of getting into this career either right after they get out of high school or later in life. It's just becoming really, really common, and knowing how much you get paid and how to get and what you should expect is really important.
Yeah, I know like one of the more common stories I keep hearing again and again and again is like people who go and they get like liberal arts degrees and they then have $50K in debt and then they can't pay them back. And then they're just like, God, I like computers. Let me look into that. Or they go and they work in their field for 2-3 years and like, God, this sucks. And then they're like, how can I go and do something? It's sort of that, if you've ever looked at job stats and whatnot, dev and software and tech is, always in the sort of top 10, and a lot of people transition.
Yeah. And it also used to be like in the bad old days, in the early 2000s, late 90s, to get a job in tech or especially development of any kind, you needed a college degree. And that's just not true anymore. And so it's really opened up to a lot more people too. I think one thing, I was reading this book about how women in tech, that just the number of women getting into computer science degrees have plummeted in the last 20 years. And it's great that we're an industry now that doesn't require a college degree, and that we have definitely a lot more diversity coming in. But that's another topic for another day.
Yeah. Today we're talking about cash money. All right.
Yeah. Money.
Yeah. Which isn't everything, right? So like, obviously when you're choosing a workplace and you're interviewing, you want to go to a place you're going to grow, going to go to a place that has a good fit and that you're going to enjoy. Like I've turned down roles. I remember there's a financial, we'll just say an investment company. We don't want to name names, not when you're saying bad stuff. Anyhow, that offered me about $15,000 more than my other role. And I ended up going with the other role because I felt like I wouldn't be as happy and I'd be a better developer, which is, you have to put value on that as well.
Yeah. So let's jump into that before we get into the numbers. So let's assume that you are getting into this career and you are new and you either graduated college or maybe you're just transferring, like Dylan said, from liberal arts and you decide there's no money there, or you're just self-taught. So the first thing you need to do is, if you do get to that point of getting an offer, you really need to kind of determine all the benefits together of why you'd want to take this. So one thing to keep in mind is, their dental and medical vision. Do they offer something like that? Do they offer for you to work from home? Obviously, if this is your first position, probably not a great idea.
Yeah, your first position, you just hop on whatever they give you. And then if it sucks, you move on after 3 or 6 months.
Yeah, that's true. Assuming that maybe you have more than one offer, or you're really trying to figure out, maybe you work as a dental hygienist and you get this offer as a software developer. You got to look at the time off policy, the health fitness. I know some companies I've worked for have given us health fitness reimbursements. Some companies I've worked for have given us free lunch, which is really cool. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, it's just lunch. Or some companies will do this thing, they'll pay for dinner, but you have to work past a certain time. If you work past like 5 or 6 o'clock Pacific time, or whatever, it's 5 or 6 o'clock your time, that is, they'll go ahead and just pay for your dinner.
Yeah, which isn't all that great considering like if you broke your hourly pay down, counting benefits, it's probably around $70 to $85 an hour. That's what it is. But free food's always cool. I don't mind some free. When it comes to food, if it's free, even if it's bad, you'll eat it.
Yeah,
But
I've
yes,
worked at places that had cafeterias for their employees, and that's always a nice little perk. And then I've had places where the cafeteria every like once every week or two, or once during the busy times, they kind of get everybody food. That's nice too.
yeah. I'm a big proponent of like snacks and drinks in the kitchen. It doesn't sound like much, and I've only had about half my workplaces do it, and it seems like the small medium sized companies, that's like an easy perk that they can add. But I always really like it. Like the coolest thing, one of the cool things, I interviewed for a role that I ended up taking. They had nitro coffee, which I like love. And so, because I'm addicted to caffeine, it was a selling point for me that I had unlimited nitro coffee in the cafeteria.
Have you ever worked at a place that I've definitely worked at places that have free soda and free drinks. I've had some places. I interviewed at one place where I opened up the drawers and it was just candy, just like tons and tons of candy bars and food for their developers and the people that work there. And I had one place I visited. I didn't interview there. They actually had a keg
Yeah.
that they would do. Have you ever? You've talked to people. You've worked or you've talked to some people that have a keg in their office.
Yeah. So that same place actually had a keg, and basically the rule was don't act a fool and try to wait till noon. And so like that was basically it. Be an adult about it, and it's just on tap. And for the most part, I would say I didn't really partake too much. I'm not a very big drinker unless I'm depressed. No, that's a horrible joke. But yeah, I don't drink too much. But occasionally on Fridays, everyone's sort of winding down. There'd be like a little group drink that if you wanted to, sort of a cheers to the weekend sort of thing. But I've always thought it was kind of weird. I
Yeah,
mean,
I always think it's kind of weird too. I worked at a place. I used to drink these root beer bottles, and if you've ever seen the root beer bottles you buy at like the convenience store or grocery store, they look like beer bottles from a distance. If you don't see them, I used to every day I would come in with a root beer bottle, and I had some guy thought I was drinking beer at work for my lunch every day. He's like, "Oh, you having another cold one?" And I'm like, I didn't know what he was saying. And then later on, I'm like, oh, he thinks I'm like drinking beer. So next time he came around and made his like offhanded remark, I'm like, dude, this is a root beer bottle. I'm not drinking beer, just because I felt like so weird about it. Note to self: next time you go to work, don't bring it.
you don't want to float that out there. But yeah, so your benefits can cover a lot of things, and like we're talking like little sort of perks right now, but there's a lot of other things that are important, like 401k. Maybe they do additional portfolio investments for you, bonuses, profit sharing. Compensation which is sort of not even the word that apparently HR calls it. Apparently, like the technical word is called total rewards. At least that's what my HR calls it, which I thought it was sort of strange. But so your total rewards, I don't know if that's an HR term, but or not. But that can be so much more. Like maybe you make 60,000, but you might make another 10, 15 on top of that in your first job if you have the right benefits.
That's good. I like that term. You're like rewarded.
Yeah, like you're getting
Um,
a treat or something.
and beware to look at the fine print of any contract or any new hire paperwork that you sign. Look out for, if you do get stocks and bonds, what the vesting schedule is on it, at least on the stocks. That's pretty common in Silicon Valley and Mountain View, Bay Area, where you get maybe you can get 20,000, maybe even 100,000 in some of these places, but they vest over 4 years, and they usually have a cliff, meaning if you leave in the first year, you don't get anything. So keep an eye out for that. And also NDAs. It doesn't happen as often in California, because it's not. I guess in California they say it's not. It's like not illegal. I guess it's sort of illegal. I don't know. I talked to someone about this.
I,
Other states, it's different though.
yeah, I just saw recently that this is sort of off topic a little bit, but the fast food industry apparently has had non-competes in their contracts for like decades. And some of that's become illegal. I want to say it's either New York or California. So like you couldn't leave working McDonald's for $9 an hour and go to Burger King to make $10 an hour because of that sort of stuff.
I think for the most part, NDA, non-disclosure agreements, non-competes are pretty unenforceable. And newer companies usually don't make you fill them out. Older companies or huge established companies might make you fill them out. Just be aware with those. Usually they're not a great thing to do because some of them like limit the places you can work after you end up leaving. I mean, sometimes you just have to take it. You can't really do anything about it. And a lot of times they'll make you sign it and they never enforce it.
Yeah.
But, you don't want to be the one guy that they do force and you get fired or they sue you. It probably never happens.
Yeah. Speaking
Also,
of sort of,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, speaking of additional sort of monetary benefits, you might get relocation or sign-on bonuses. Those typically will have, some will have a vesting period, or maybe you get some money every 3-6 months, whatever it is. Some you'll get all up front, but then there's an expectation of a year or 2 years. And if you leave before that, they're going to, dock it out of your last couple checks.
And usually too, a lot of these jobs will come from a recruiter. Depends on earlier in your career, but I've seen recruiters are so prevalent that almost any tech job now has some kind of recruiting agency that's working for them to get people. So if you work with a recruiter, you can kind of hash these details out with them. You can ask them a lot of things, and a lot of times they'll go up to bat with you for you. Let's talk a little bit about negotiation, because I think me and Dylan both have the same opinion that you should always try to negotiate your salary. It doesn't, even if you're new, it doesn't hurt to try. They almost would never rescind your offer just because you ask for more money.
Yeah, and if they do, you don't want to work there anyhow. Like, because it's, I mean, unless you're shooting for the moon, they offer you 100, you say 200. The conversation's probably done there. But you say, I think I'm worth 120, 125. And this is why.
Yeah.
But
and also there's a lot of tips on negotiating. I think there's whole books on it. One thing to do is don't be the first person to give the number if you can. So usually if you're working with a recruiter, they'll ask you for the amount that you're looking for. Sometimes you can give them a broad range, but realize they may pick the lower part of that range.
So I disagree with this. I've had this sort of talk, and when I first started my career, I did exactly that. And what I learned was that sometimes people would lose interest because they have a range that they have to work it with. And as I got more mature in my career and I was worth more money, the number one indicator to eliminate time wasters is just to tell them what I want. And if they can pay it, great. But if they could, I'm fairly above market value. And I think it's important that ask for whatever it is you want and that you'll actually take. That way everyone's on the same page.
I'm always worried though, if you do that and you say, maybe you think you're above market rate, I'm just going to make it up. Maybe you say 140 is my above market rate. You say 140 and they're like, cool, you're done, you're in. But if you would have had them throw out the first number, maybe they thought the above market rate was 150 and you just lost yourself out $10,000.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I could tell you. So I accepted a role for $25,000 more, and I asked for at the time asked for 90, and they came back with 100. And so they actually offered me more money than what I asked for, which is unique. But even then I was like, damn it, I want to ask for more money now because they want me so bad. But then it's like, how do you ask for more money after they offered you, 10 grand more than what you asked for?
Yeah, you're kind of stuck. The one thing is, after you accept the offer, you're going to have to work for raises every year, and you're going to be in the system, which means that in a good company, it's maybe 2 to 5% a year with bonuses, and then that doesn't include bonuses. If you're in a bad company, maybe it's 1%, 2% a year.
If you get 1 to 2%, have some self-respect and quit that job for a different job, even if you take the same pay. 1 to 2% is insulting. This doesn't even keep up with inflation.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes you're just stuck. And then at that time, Dylan would say, what do you do when you're stuck like that?
Get the hell out.
Exactly.
You work on your skills and then you go and make yourself more valuable. I remember talking with a director of mine, and we were just having a casual conversation as a group. And he didn't necessarily agree with this sentiment, but the group sentiment was that if you give a developer that you want to keep anything less than 5%, you're telling them that you don't want to keep them because somebody else will give them more than 5% to leave. And so
I wish
that's
that's a pretty good. I've gotten raises, but just like the yearly increases, I've never gotten 5%. But I know what you're saying. That's pretty good.
I mean, you could leave. I promise you could go leave for another company. I'm sure you're very happy where you're at, but I promise you could go and get 5% at any other company you leave.
Yeah, yeah. If you leave, I guess I've only been in my company for a year and a half, and I've done pretty well. But I understand that. Let's talk about. Oh, go
like,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, so sometimes companies it's hard for them to figure out how to justify to give you raises, and so what they do is they promote you to justify to give those raises. So sometimes companies have to get very creative, but by and large, the number one way to just sort of increase your salary is just to make sure that you have a very strong starting salary.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, work on that. Make sure you're happy with that, and then look at the total compensation. So I'm gonna talk some numbers now, and I pulled this out of bestplaces.net. It's a website where you can kind of look up any place where you're living at and kind of get the cost of living. They give you a calculator from like 1 to 100, or actually it goes on up from 100, 1 to like 200 really. And so I pulled out 3 different categories of cost of living, and then I just kind of put some numbers together, what I think are averages for these different types. And I want to see, Dylan, if you agree, because I think we might have a few disagreements on this, but that's okay. We have 2 different ideas. So if you're starting a new job and you're in a low cost of living area, I'm talking about like Dallas, Phoenix, Philadelphia, Detroit, Tampa Bay, or Tampa. Actually, I think Tampa's more medium now. I think the housing income has gone up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. I just bought a house here a year ago. Tampa. So, I mean, for me, coming from Los Angeles, Tampa was like it went, it was like I doubled my money. And so like not only did I get like a 50% raise to come out here from my previous job, but I also then had this substantial cost of living decrease. So it's just fantastic.
And I think you can tell, like, if you're in one of these low cost of living areas just by how much money you're spending on your rent or mortgage payments every month, how much the food's costing, things like that. So just kind of ballpark. Now I did when I thought about this, about starting salaries, I was thinking about, do you have a college degree or you don't have a college degree? And I will say, just blanket statement, that if you don't have a college degree, these numbers, you could start a junior position at like $10 an hour, $15 an hour.
Yeah, that's one of the unique things about development. And like, it's not, I don't even think this is a degree thing. I think this is just a software thing where you might get one of those roles that start at $10 an hour. My first internship was $12 an hour. I was only there 3 months, but it's one of those items where you can have a vast difference in skill level, and it's important that you understand that. You may have to, you may start at 12, then go to 20, then go to 30, then go to 40, then go to 50. But you have to. It's sort of one thing that pisses me off about some of these lazy freaking people, lazy people that barely can code that I interview, is they just assume that they should get this 6-figure job, and it's like, you can barely write a for loop. Like, there's families out there working hard jobs that are barely scraping by, making 40, 50K, and you just think you should have to earn your salary, and it's not just gonna be given because the field's so in demand.
Yeah, I think people get like the stars in their eyes and like, I deserve $100,000, or they look at the salaries they pay in Silicon Valley. But I would say, let's say you have some experience, maybe you're self-taught, maybe you got from a boot camp, and you're trying to get for that starting junior role. I mean, assuming you're starting with something.
Yeah.
I would say $45,000 to $55,000 in a low cost of living area.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you that when my very first like real role, I consider when I came down to the Tampa area, and I started at 62, but I do think that was probably a okay to generous starting salary, and because I didn't know shit, And so I knew enough to barely get a job, I think. But that first role that you're starting, regardless of the area, it shouldn't be about money. It should be about learning and growing, and like the next few roles will be about money.
Yep. And I think like a medium cost of living area that could be like 50,000 to 60,000 starting, and then a high cost of living area like New York, LA, San Francisco Bay Area, Seattle, Boston, you can be close to 95,000, 90,000 to 100,000 starting. I would say that the cost of living so high there that even starting at that salary is still tough.
Yeah. So I cost of living is a very big thing for me. And when I've considered roles outside of California, it's always in states that had a lower cost of living, and like even have considered things outside of Florida, I then consider it. And so like the easy thing for me to compare is like I'll just do my comparison, like, oh, what is it like based on my current salary living there? And I just think like, oh, it's cheaper. So it'd be like if I was living here and let's say I was making 100 and 50% cheaper, it's like, oh, I'm making like 150. Or, oh, it's 50% more expensive. It'd be like, oh, I make like 50 grand. And you just start to do this soft math in your head. And then you can kind of get a very rough idea of what it's like in your new location sometimes.
Exactly. Mid career on a low cost of living, I would say this is after you have a few years of experience. Anywhere between 55,000 to 70,000 for like a medium cost of living area, 60,000 to 75,000. On a high cost of living area, maybe 100,000 to 110,000, 120,000.
Yeah, once you get past that initial job, it becomes very interesting because your salary can jump quite a bit if you got quite a bit better. And so, like, I know for my very second job, I ended up going from 62 to 67 at the job I was at, and then after spending 1 year there, I went to 75, which wasn't a huge jump, but it's if you compare it to 62 at that point, you're almost at a 20% pay increase in a year.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm trying to think back of what I was paid around. My first job was paid around 60,000 out of college, and then it went up a lot higher. My second job kind of just went up from there. I'm trying to think the exact numbers. But let's move on. So when you get after a few years, depending on your how fast you're leveling up, it could just be a year. It could be 2 years.
Yeah.
But eventually you'll be known as the senior developer. If you're in a really established place, you might become an architect, or you might become I know there's a bunch of different titles we call senior developers nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to my earlier point about trying to promote people to keep them and give them more money. You have team leads. You
Yep.
have senior team leads sometimes, tech leads.
Principals.
Managers. I haven't heard principals, but
Yeah.
you have managers, architects. So they'll come up, and eventually they'll just start throwing numbers on there. You'll be architect 1, 2, and 3, and once they can't come up with anything else.
There's really no standard for developers and what your title is. So every company makes it up.
Yes.
So it's really no different. And you can somehow make correlations between one company and another, but hold on one sec.
All
right. So I think at the end of your journey here, once you become the senior developer or principal or architect or whatever, the salary ranges kind of vary a lot. I would say in low cost of living, you could be making 70,000 and be considered a senior developer. And a medium cost of living, you could be making 75, and a high cost of living, you could be making 100. You won't be considered senior until you're making 130,000. So it just varies quite a bit, and there's a lot of room too. So even if you're living in a medium cost of living area, some companies might consider $75,000. You might be making $75,000 in senior. Someone in that same company could be making $130,000 and be the senior developer. So I've seen there's no consistency even in larger companies of how much they pay people and their titles.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same role at any company can be doubled at one other company, But that's also goes to sort of where you're at in your career. Are you working for those more established, corporate sort of $1 billion companies that are doing tons and tons of revenue, or are you working at those small to medium ones as you're working your way up? And that's sort of the path I've taken. Worked my way up, and not only will you get those salary increases, but you also now start getting some of those additional benefits where your PTO is now fantastic versus like the 7 days or 10 days you got. Your health insurance is much better. Your 401k is better. You got so many more holidays. Your bonuses are much larger, all that sort of stuff. So it definitely is going to vary by organization.
Do you think, let me ask you this, Dylan. So let's say you're in an organization, you've been there for a year or two, and you got a promotion, and let's say you're making $110,000. You have some coworkers that work with you. Is it okay, after work to have some beers, tell your coworkers how much you make, see if you can find out how much they make, just to see if you're on the same level? Or do you think that's asking for trouble?
So I'm very open about salary. So I've done videos about my salary in the past. I make 115 and I have a 13% bonus right now. And then I have some other stuff like investments that the company pays for. I think we all should be talking about it. I will say that I do know that a colleague of mine makes $5,000 more dollars than I do. And that's just because he asked for $5,000 more dollars. But I do think that you should find out exactly where you're at. And I can tell you that it's caused issues for other developers in the past. A story of I went from 75 to 105 at my second job, which I had about maybe 2 years of experience, like full-time dev experience at that time. And another developer who was in a similar boat, but the company didn't want to do that for him. And that caused him to leave. And so sometimes it can cause issues. Sometimes that can, they say, all right, well, if you're willing to pay him this here, but not me, then I'll go find somebody elsewhere that will. And that may sound harsh, but the company's got to do what they think is right. And personally, I would rather know if my coworker made 40 grand more than me or 20 grand more than I did, so that I could say, look, I'm worth that. Maybe you don't see it, but I can at least go trick a company out there to pay me it.
Yeah, I have a quick story on that. So I've been in companies and where I heard a story. I was working in a company and one guy was making 105,000, and over beers after work one day, he told to his coworker that he was making, 6 figures, and his coworker was only making like 84,000.
Mm-hmm.
So the coworker that was making 84,000 got all upset. During his next one-on-one review, he said, "Why am I only getting paid 84,000 and this guy's getting paid 105,000?" And the guy that told him kind of told him, down low, don't tell anybody. And it became a huge issue, and to the point where they stopped talking together because it was like they violated his trust. And I don't think the person that gave out his salary got in trouble at all, but it did cause issues.
Yeah, I do think it's illegal to tell a company not talk about it. And I actually, so before I made that video, it's like sometimes you read shit online and you're like, oh, sure, someone wrote a blog about whether this is illegal or not. So I had reached out to my HR representative directly to make sure that was the case. Because I'm glad to talk about it, but if they're gonna fire me and it's legal for them to do it, nah, I'm not cool with that. I got a mortgage, you know what I mean? But yes, at least in the state of Florida, as far as I know, and I believe in California as well, which is where I was before, that it's actually, an employer can't tell you not to talk about your compensation.
I think, and so after exactly, it shouldn't be illegal. So after that happened,
well,
I was like scared. I was like, "Ooh, I shouldn't tell my salary to anybody."
Yeah, money's a taboo thing. A lot of times, it's like a lot of people grow up not being able to handle money properly and understand what it means. That's why credit card debt's out of control, and people have stupid ass loans. make 40 grand, take out an 80 grand car loan, stupid shit. Like, it's not one of those things that's really taught. And there's sort of this negative aspect of talking about it, because then you come off money hungry and whatnot, and all the negatives that people associate with it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of how I felt for a little bit, but I don't think like so in different job later on, I was working with a coworker and he basically asked me one day, he's like, "How much do you make?" And then I was thinking, like, I don't want to tell him because I was pretty sure I made more than him, but I felt like if I told him that I made more than him, then he would be mad and think that I got paid too high. And if I told him I made a number that was less than him, then he'd think that maybe he deserved more or something. So I kind of got in my head that I shouldn't do it. But then afterwards, after, talking to you and, going on this journey a few years later, I'm like, I think it's healthy to talk to your coworkers about how much you make. If you trust them, of course, just because you're going to get a good idea of like, are you being underpaid in your job? Are you being overpaid in your job? If you find out you're really underpaid in your job, then like you said, Dylan, maybe it's time to find another job. Or when you get to that review at the end of the year, you don't say, "Hey, I know other people are making 120,000." You'd be like, "Hey, I think I'm a little underpaid. Is there something I can do to get that raise? Or like, can you give me a plan of how I can earn more?" Or maybe you could just approach it like that to your boss.
Yeah,
To see if there's some way you can make more money.
and
I think it's a huge advantage by sharing your salary with your coworkers.
yeah, and I've had other developers, like this one developer wanted essentially the raise right then and there, which good luck. But I've had other developers who are like, okay, my 1 year's 3 months off, and you're making $30,000 more than me. That's not going to happen after my 1 year. We're going to get that down to $5,000 or even. And so, it lets you know where you stand. And, companies, if they like you, if you're doing a good job, they want to keep you. There's plenty of devs, they probably feel they're overpaying, but if you're a good dev, they're going to try and pay you a good dev wage to keep, because it's a competitive industry. It's hard to keep people, and it's hard to find people. I'm trying to find developers to join my team at work, and I can't find anybody that's qualified. And so it's definitely one of those items where companies want to keep you, but you have to prove your value. Sometimes people forget that our salaries, our benefits, our compensation, let's say altogether, probably, if I think they say something like 25% of what your base salary is what it costs a company just to keep you with benefits, not even counting taxes. And so like, I'm 115, that probably altogether, everything, bonuses, all that, I'm probably costing my company 160 a year. I have to provide 160 plus of value, because this isn't a charity. These are companies. They want to make money. And sometimes people need to remember that. So if you're not providing your value and you're saying, I want more, people are just going to be like, sorry.
Yeah.
So,
I think at the end of the day, you have to have that minimal amount of work ethic. You're going to have to be a good employee. You're going to have to do the work. You're going to have to earn that money.
Yeah. I can tell you that the people in my past who have wanted more money but didn't get it, I've had conversations with them, because anytime I've ever asked for more money, I've gotten it. And it's never been an issue. And probably because I'm very forward with it. I don't know how many people walk up to their boss and say, I need more money, but I do. So, one thing is that the people that I've known who have been unsuccessful with it, if you were to ask them what side projects they're working on, if they code outside of work, if they're learning, they say, no, I just want to live my life. Or, they give you some hippy dippy answer. And it's like, that's fine. But learning to cook really well isn't going to help your workplace want to give you $10,000 more dollars. So you have to understand that you need to increase your value if you're going to ask for more value.
Yep. I think that's a good note to wrap it up. Anything else we missed?
One last thing I want to talk about was negotiation.
And we kind of hinted on it a little bit earlier.
Yeah. I have sort of one single rule I wanted to share with people. And sometimes people forget that you can negotiate other things than just money. We're so content about base salary and whatnot, and obviously you should. And I always have like a $5,000 rule where if they don't offer me exactly what I asked for, I always ask for $5,000 more dollars, because that's a small enough amount that they'll probably say yes. But also that you can negotiate other things like remote time. You can negotiate maybe having instead of waiting a year for your next review and you want to make a little bit more money a little bit sooner, you do have 6 months. You can negotiate a different schedule. I've worked with many developers who work 4 10-hour days and have 3-day weekends, and pay for conferences. All these things are negotiable a lot of times. But if you do negotiate it, get that shit in writing, because the second someone says, yeah, sure, no problem, you just want to make sure that it's in your contract so that everyone's on the same page in case the company takes a turn or something changes.
Get it in writing. That's a good one.
Yeah. That's all I got, though.
All right, cool. We'll wrap it up. Thanks, guys, for listening. And till next time.
Yeah, till next time on Self-Taught or Not. Hey, guys, thanks for watching. If you want to find more about what I'm up to, go to dylanisrael.com.
And if you want to know what I'm up to, you can check out my website at eric.video. If you haven't already, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It really helps us out. And if you do, you might even be featured on our next episode. Don't forget to check out the website at selftaughtornot.com. From there, you can sign up for a mailing list where we give away free courses and a bunch of cool stuff. And we'll also let you know when the next episode comes out. And finally, if you didn't know, we have a Facebook group. It's called Code, Tech, and Caffeine. We have over 10,000 members, and you can find the link at selftaughtornot.com. So come join us. We have tons of developers willing to help you guys, mentor you guys. Check it out. Just make sure you go to selftaughtornot.com and check out the Code, Tech, and Caffeine link. Thanks, and take care.